talk about learning and memory. I have the slides here for you. So, this is an image showing different areas of the brain. I mean the cortical areas, right? So, somatosensory area 1, which includes Brodmann area 1, 2, 3, right? It's important for detection of the basic features of the touch. Remember? Pressure, vibration, temperature, I don't know, the boundaries, edges, right? Then information from here go to the Brodmann area 5 and 7, which is the associational area for the somatosensory cortex. So it's involved in more complex features of the touch, like form and shape. So association area is involved in higher order level processing. Right? You have also voluntary motor area, Brodmann area 4. And it receives information from the premotor and supplementary motor area. So supplementary motor area and the premotor area are associational cortex for primary motor cortex. So they plan the movement, and the plan reaches the primary motor cortex. The primary motor cortex actually performs the action. Right? Again, higher order information comes from the premotor and supplementary motor area, associational cortex. So, here we have elaboration of thought in the prefrontal cortex. Hand skills in the parietal cortex. Skills are motor movements, right? But in the parietal area, which is sensory part of the brain, we have some special regions responsible for hand skill. So, this important area should receive information from somatosensory cortex, visual cortex, and also auditory cortex, and then they combine the information together, and after the combination they have connections with the motor areas. So this area can guide the motor areas for performing the action. Without this area, motor areas cannot perform the action properly. So they need the sensory information from here. Okay? We'll see this today. An eye turning area located in the premotor cortex. You remember that? Frontal eye field. And we have Broca's area here for the speech. So you can see that different areas of the cortex may have different functions, right? So cortex have some inputs and outputs. So from the amygdala, thalamus, other cortical regions, hippocampal formation, brainstem modulatory system, all of these send information to the cortex. And the cortex sends output to other cortical areas, hippocampus, amygdala, thalamus, caudate and putamen. We have seen this yesterday. Cortex make connections with caudate and putamen. Remember?
Yes.
And cortex also activates brainstem nuclei and also spinal. So these are connections of the cortex. So each area of the cortex is also connected with a specific nuclei in the thalamus. Right? So you can name some of them. In the somatosensory cortex, or let's say somatosensory cortex is connected to ventral posterior nucleus, lateral part, medial part, right? So, somatosensory cortex, right? Face is represented here. Face is connected with the VPN median.
Yes, medial.
Leg is represented here, and the body is also here. So they are connected with ventral posterior nucleus, lateral. So, specific nuclei in the thalamus are connected with the specific regions in the cortex. So, another area, this one. Primary motor cortex, right? It's connected with lateral and anterior nuclei in the thalamus. Remember from yesterday's session, cerebellum and basal ganglia send information to the lateral nucleus, anterior nucleus in the thalamus. Then from here, they go to the cortex. So the motor cortex is connected with the lateral and anterior nuclei of the thalamus. So each region, this one is important for vision. It's connected with lateral geniculate body of the thalamus. Auditory cortex is connected with the medial geniculate body. This one here, prefrontal cortex, dorsal medial nucleus, or mediodorsal nucleus of the thalamus. So each region is connected to some specific nuclei. Actually, the thalamus has both specific nuclei and non-specific nuclei. Remember? For pain, I told you that we have intralaminar nuclei, like centromedian, parafascicular, right? So they are non-specific nuclei. What does it mean, non-specific? It means they are connected with all over the cortex. There is no specific connection. The connection is widespread. But the specific nuclei are specifically connected with the small region of the cortex. So we have non-specific nuclei, specific nuclei. Non-specific nuclei are also important for wakefulness that we have seen yesterday. Brainstem neurons go to the thalamus, especially the cholinergic one. Right? From thalamus, they go non-specifically to the whole cortex. They cause wakefulness. Right? So, we have thalamocortical system. There is bidirectional connection between the cortex and thalamus. Thalamic excitation of the cortex is necessary for cortical activation. Cortex operates in close association with thalamus and is anatomically and functionally unique with thalamus. Okay. Different layers of the cortex. Remember, we had six different layers. Layer 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Layer 4 is the layer which receives information from the thalamus. So thalamocortical inputs enter layer 4 of the cortex. Right? So layer 1 contains dendrites from cells in different layers and axons traveling to other cortical areas. So layer 1, here, there is no cell here, so you have only dendrites and axons. Axons are coming from other cortical regions. Layer 2 and 3 have small pyramidal cells, 2 and 3. Okay? They project to the same and adjacent areas of the cortex. Layer 4 receives information from thalamus. Layer 5 is the major output of the cortex. So corticospinal tract originates from this layer. Right? Layer 5. And layer 6 has output fibers to thalamus. Fibers from the cortex. The thalamus originates from layer 6 of the cortex. Okay. So based on this, we can divide cortical regions into primary regions, right? Primary, so primary somatosensory, primary motor, primary visual, primary auditory. When we say primary, it means they first receive the respective information from thalamus. So, somatic information first enter this area from the ventral posterior nucleus of the thalamus. Right? Visual information from the retina go to the lateral geniculate body of the thalamus. From lateral geniculate body, they first enter this area. Primary visual cortex. Auditory information from the medial geniculate body of the thalamus first enter this area. So, these regions are the first region in the cortex that receive the original information from the sensory system. Right? We call them primary. And we have also secondary areas. Secondary areas are, for example, here, secondary visual, secondary somatic. Supplementary and motor are also secondary areas, okay? So, we have higher order processing in the secondary areas. more complex features are analyzed here. But what about the rest of the cortex? Okay? So the rest of the cortex, here, here, and here are called associational areas. They make an association between different areas of the cortex, between sensory part and motor part, or between different senses. For example, we have parieto occipitotemporal association area. So it receives information from somatosensory, visual, auditory. So different types of senses are combined here in the parieto occipitotemporal association area. And prefrontal cortex is an area which is not involved in sensation, not involved in motor performance.
For thinking?
It's important for thinking processes and also planning of movements. I mean, higher order planning of the movement. Remember, yesterday I talked about codex circuit. I told you that it's important for cognitive control of movement. Right? So you think about something and you decide about the course of action and then you do that. So this thinking process and decision making happens here in the prefrontal cortex. So association area are important for making the link between sensation and action, right? Or between different types of sensations. So let's see some of the important functions of these areas. For example, parieto occipitotemporal cortex is important for spatial coordinates of the body and surroundings. Spatial coordinates of the body and surroundings. Okay? So for example, you know that this is right, this is left, up, down, this is front, behind. Okay? So this is spatial coordinates. And you know also this for yourself. Okay, this is my right side, this is my left side. Okay, here is up, down, back, front. So this awareness happens here in the parieto occipitotemporal cortex. Why? It receives proprioceptive information from the somatosensory cortex. It receives visual information from the occipital cortex. It receives auditory information from the temporal cortex, combines all of them together. Based on this, it can be aware of the space, the location, orientations. Okay? Another region here is important for naming of the object. So we can recognize objects by this area. So we know that this is a remote control, this is a monitor, this is a cell phone, this one is a marker. Okay, so we know the names. When we see this, we can recognize it. We know the name. Okay? This function depends on this area. Naming of the object.
Include
and recognition. So understanding and naming.
Include languages. For example, I know this border marker by many languages. It's included there?
Yeah. So it's connected with language areas here. So this area is also an area for storing memory. So we can have a memory of the names. Okay? All of them are stored here. Naming area. So, in today's session, I also talked about emotion. I told you that limbic system is important for emotion. Emotion had several aspects: behavior, feeling, physiology. Right? So this area is important for behavioral aspect of the emotion and also motivation. Right? So here for planning complex movements and elaboration of the thought. So here we have language, here we have word formation. So actually you can consider that these type of functions are not pure sensory, not pure motor movements. Right? So that's why we call them higher order. They are beyond sensation, they are beyond motor. So when, for example, language, consider the language, it's not only a sensory function. You can understand, you can talk, you can think, all of them happen in the language system, right? So it makes association between sensation and action. It's beyond these. So that's why we call them higher order, higher functions. So let's see some outcomes that happen after damage to the associational cortex. First, let's consider this area. Parieto-occipitotemporal association cortex. Specifically, we call them posterior parietal cortex. This is the anterior parietal cortex. This one is posterior parietal cortex, right? Both one area of 5 and 7 and the surrounding area. So if there is damage here, in the dorsal part of the posterior parietal cortex, then there will be impairment in the body awareness. We call this asomatognosia, motor control, and visual guidance of motor behavior. Okay? So the patient has a damage here in the parietal cortex, dorsal part. Okay? When you examine the patient, there is no paralysis in the muscle. There is no sensory loss. So the person can touch everything. Okay? But there is problem with understanding the body. So the patient usually is not aware of the left side of the body. So he or she ignores the left side. Okay? So we call this asomatognosia. The patient forgets to use this side of the body, so motor actions on the left side are depressed or lost. Okay? Another thing is ideomotor apraxia. So motor control here is lost usually. I mean, the patient doesn't use the left side of the body for motor action. Okay?
If right is
So again?
so the right one is controlling the left one.
Yeah. The right side is damaged. Everything happens on the left side. Yeah. Visual guidance of motor behavior is lost. We call this condition optic ataxia. For example, optic ataxia can be measured by this test. You can ask the patient to put their hand into this slit. Okay, so the patient should put the hand in the slit. Usually there is misdirection, so the patient misses the target. Okay? Or there may be misorientation. So the slit is vertical, but the patient actually approached the target with a horizontal end. Okay, so misorientation, misdirection. Is there any problem with vision here?
No.
No. Visual cortex is in the occipital
Also
cortex and also temporal cortex. So if you test the patient for vision, there is no problem. Okay? Is there any motor problem here? No paralysis, no ataxia, no weakness in the movement. So everything in the motor system is correct. But the patient cannot do anything correctly. Why? Because sensation is okay, motor is okay, but the connection is not okay. In order to do a movement, you need sensation. Sensation is there, but it cannot reach movement areas. Sensation should be analyzed at a higher order, then the result should reach the motor system. The area which is responsible for analysis of the sensory information here is this part of the brain. And now it has a damage. So processing doesn't occur, and there is no connection also with the motor system. So that's why motor control system cannot use the sensory information for guiding the behavior. Okay? So visual guidance of motor behavior is lost. We call this optical taxi. Another test is this one. You can ask the patient to pick up something like this. Okay? So the patient should reach, then pick it up. So when the patient is, in a normal situation, when you start the movement, the shape of the hand is matched to the shape of the object. If the object is this, the hand should be like this. If the object is this, then the hand should be like this. So you use these two fingers to remove this, but you use whole hand to remove this one. Okay? So we call this pre-shaping. So in the normal situation, the shape of the hand matches the shape of the object. But when there is damage there, the shaping of the hand doesn't match the shape of the object. Right? Again, motor system is normal, sensory system is normal, but connection of these two is lost. So association cortex is important for making this connection. This connection is not only a passive pathway. You're not talking about some axons that go from the sensory cortex to the motor cortex. No, I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about an area which receives sensory information, it analyzes the sensory information at a higher level, then passes the result to the motor cortex. This one is lost. Okay? So, if instead of having a damage in the dorsomedial part of the parietal cortex, we have a damage in the ventral part, then this doesn't happen actually, this one happens. Impairment of a spatial perception. So spatial understanding is lost. Action is okay. Okay? So, action depends on the dorsal part, but understanding and cognition depends on the ventral part of the parietal cortex. How you can test this? This way. For example, you can ask the patient to divide this line into two equal sizes. So if I would be the patient, I would do this here. But the patient did it here. This one is longer than this one. Okay, so this is not exactly in the middle of the line. You can ask the patient to cancel these lines. The patient did this for these lines, but he or she ignored this part. The left side was ignored. You ask the patient to copy this model image. The patient did like this. So he actually ignored the left side. You ask the patient to draw a clock.
So it's opposite. If there's damage in right, the left side will.
Yeah, exactly. So the patient ignored the left side of the image. So he put all of the numbers here. 1 to 12, okay? So, when there is damage in the dorsal part, the patient ignores left side of the body. When there is damage in the ventral side, the patient ignores the left side of objects. Okay? So the first one is called near space. The second one is called far space. So we are aware of the near space, our body, and the space that we have access to, for example, this circle, so we call this near space. It depends on the dorsal part of the parietal cortex. But far space depends on ventral part of the parietal cortex. Okay? So here we have a problem with attention. You know attention. So the patient attends to something or something else. Okay, I told you that the patient ignores this one. It doesn't mean that the patient cannot see these lines. or cannot see this part of the house. Okay? The patient is not aware of that. Okay, again, let's get back to our example from our first session. I told you, when you attend to me, you actually use all of your resources in your brain and focus all of them on me. So you ignore, for example, the sound of this fan. You can hear it, or the sound of this air conditioner. Okay, so it's making noise, and you are aware of that now. But when you attend me, they ignore that. So this patient attend to this part of the image. So ignore this one. It doesn't mean that the patient cannot see this. If you deviate his attention to this part, the patient can be aware of that. But when they automatically attend something, they ignore the left side. Okay? So, based on this, we can say
Sir,
that.
in this condition, there is lesion on somatosensory association area.
Yes.
And it's not working. The somatosensory association area is not working. Not working. Lesion it is not working.
Yeah.
So there is no any connection between the association area and the motor cortex. So the information, the sensory information is not going to the motor cortex. So how motor function is still going there.
So, this sensory information is used for guiding the movement. For example, when you want to reach this object, you should know the place of this object in the space. You should know the place of your hand, right? Then you can do a motor action onto this object. Okay? So, you guide your movement of the hand toward the target. So when this area is damaged, this movement is lost. But it doesn't mean that you cannot move your hand.
Motor has no problem.
Yeah, there is no problem with motor movement. So you can use, for example, your left hand to get this one, okay, or do other things.
Sir,
But for a special type of movement, which is actually coordinated by this part, this type of movement actually is lost. Okay?
so there is a connection between the primary somatosensory area and the
Yeah.
motor cortex.
Those connections are still there. Okay? But the association area is not connected to the motor system. Okay, so we were talking about space, so, and attention, right? When you ask a person to attend to the left side, the right side of the brain is activated. So, I want to attend to left side, okay? This part of the brain is activated. So, parietal cortex on the right side. When I want to attend to the right side, again, right side of the brain is activated, and the left side is activated a little only. Okay, so you can see that. The right side is activated both when you attend to the right, to the left, and to the right. But the left side is only activated a little when you attend to the right.
Dr. which hemisphere is good for memorizing?
What?
Which hemisphere is better for memorizing? I mean, if I look at the left one, my right hemisphere is working.
Yeah.
So it's the actually I heard that it's good way for memorizing from this side, not this side. Why? Because the right
So this is not for memory, okay? Actually, this one is important for attention. So, maybe it can be applicable to the memory. For example, when you read something, actually depends on your brain, okay? So, for example, if you use your right brain for memory, okay, it's better to put for example, look this way, maybe. Right side, the left side, okay? So this way the right cortex receives more information. Actually we are talking about the hypothetical situation. If your brain is better in understanding anything on the right side.
So there is no physiological.
Yeah. We don't know about that, okay? But for some type of information, the right brain is better. For some other information, the left brain is important. So we will have this in a slide. For example, for mathematics, the left brain is better.
So I need that.
Yeah. But for music, for, I don't know, for anything related to art, the right brain is actually is functioning better.
It's also working for listening. For example, if I listen from the right
For
one,
music, I mean.
left one.
So the music actually is better understood by the right side of the brain. Okay? But now we are talking about the attention. Please. We
One
cannot.
question,
Okay, we cannot.
So what is the basic difference between some people are very good by their left hand side,
Yeah.
mostly are right, but some has very good like
Right
for example
hand, left
writing
hand.
skills, everything. So what is the basic difference in this?
So we call this dominance. Okay, dominance of the hemisphere. So for some actions, the dominant hemisphere is the right one. For some other actions, the dominant hemisphere is the left side. Okay? For example, for control on your motor movements in your hand, the dominant hemisphere is left side. So that's why you write better with the right hand. Okay? So in right-handed people, the left side of the brain is dominant for motor movements. In left-handed people, the right side of the brain is dominant for movement. Okay?
You can fix this problem.
No, you cannot fix this because it's genetically defined.
I read about it. I read an article about this, and there is a lot of research about it. If you write by two hands in the same time, and
We're talking about attention. So, let's see this one. We can say that the right hemisphere can attend to the left and to the right. But the left cortex can only minimally attend to the right. So, now, if there is damage here on the right side, what happens? The person can still attend to the left side, to the right side, but he or she is not able to attend to the left. So we will have left side hemi-neglect. Left side hemi-neglect, right? Or left neglect. But if there is damage on the right side, so the person can attend to the left, but he or she can also attend to the right, but the right side, on the right side there is only a minimal defect. Okay, so there will be minimal right neglect. So that's why damage to the right side of the brain causes neglect on the left side, but damage to the left side doesn't cause neglect on the right side. Okay? So, this is a mechanism for having attention. Prefrontal association area. I told you that it's important for thinking processes, right? So it's important for selection, planning, and execution of appropriate behavior, in particular in social context. So selecting the best behavior, planning the behavior, and performing the behavior. So it can bring information from widespread areas of the brain. So in our brain, everything is stored in a lot of areas. For example, names are here, faces are in the temporal lobe, I don't know, okay? So, for example, actions are stored in the motor cortex. So we have a lot of memories in different areas of the brain. So when you want to think about these, the prefrontal cortex needs these information. So it can bring these information from the stores to the conscious level in an in a working interface called working memory, then the brain can use this type of memory in order to process the information. So the thinking is going on, okay? And the brain can use this information for planning the future action, okay? So we call this elaboration of the thought. So the prefrontal cortex can call forth information from different areas of the brain. It can bring the information into the working memory, then use them for elaboration of the thought. I mean, it can carry through the sequential thought to solve the problem. So problem solving happen here. And planning and performing sequence of tasks to reach complex goals, and also for prognostication. So working memory is a type of memory which is used for small bits of information, like you call the operator, ask a telephone number, okay, they give you the telephone number, you memorize the telephone number for some seconds. During this memory, you continue to repeat the number with yourself, okay, in your brain, I mean your mind, you repeat it, so there is circulation of information. Then you use the information for an immediate goal, like making a note or dialing the number, okay? So you brought small information into your mind, you repeat it with yourself, we call this rehearsal, right? Then you used it for an immediate goal, right? Like writing or dialing, okay? So this is the working memory, and this all happens in the prefrontal association cortex. So you can also bring the information into the working memory from the past memory, from the long-term memory, not from the sensory information. Okay? So past memory, I mean long-term memory can come into the working memory, then they can be reanalyzed by the brain, and they can be used for another immediate goal. So this way you can continue the thinking process. So all of this happen in the prefrontal. So if there is damage here, the person cannot use the working memory. So the course of the thinking process is lost. So the patient cannot use information in order to plan something, to do sequence of something, for example. Okay? So let's have an example. If you want to, for example, prepare, I don't know, something for eating, like prepare coffee. Okay? So if you want to think about that, you go through this way. Okay, I need to boil the water. Okay, first of all, so I need fire. I should have water. I need some pots. Okay, then I need coffee. Then I should boil the water. I should mix them. Then I need a glass to drink it. Okay, so you can think about everything. So then you should prepare for the order of this. So first you should do this, then you should do another thing, then you should do another thing, okay? So you can think about the order and the things that you need. So this is the elaboration of thought. This is going through the sequence of actions. So a normal brain can do this very easily. But a patient with a problem in the prefrontal cortex, in the form of damage, anything, cannot do this. Okay, so they cannot carry on a course of action or a course of thinking process. Right? So, another area is in the temporal cortex for the naming of objects. It's located in the medioventral temporal cortex. So you can ask the patient to draw these copies. I mean, this sample image, so this is the patient's copy. Okay, the patient copied this one, and so this one, and so this one. But if you ask the person about the name of this object, they don't know the name. So we ask the person, what did you draw? they will tell you, I don't know. Or they may judge about this, that it can be a dog or any other animal. So they don't know the name of this one. Okay? So they cannot tell you that it's a pig. Or this one. They cannot tell you that it's a bird, for example. Right? So, you ask the patient to copy the image. The person did it perfectly. It means they can see the object, they can use spatial information, so they use the right side, left side, up, down, everything in order to reproduce the image. But they don't know the name, they cannot recognize the object. Okay, for example, in the first example, if you ask the patient that, okay, you don't know the name, right? So which of these can be related to that image? This one, or this one, or this one. This is a lock. Okay? So again, the patient cannot have any judgment about it. So the patient doesn't know that this object is related with this one. So it's not only a matter of naming, it's also a matter of understanding. Okay? But does it mean that the patient doesn't know anything about the key and the lock? No. When they go home, they'll reach the door, they put their hand into the pocket, bring out the key, and open the door. So all of this happens automatically at the subconscious level. But when you consciously ask them to talk about that, to name the object and say the function, they cannot do that. Okay? So this area is important for naming of the object. So far you have seen that. In the brain, we have some associational areas important for different aspects of cognition. Some areas are specifically for space. I mean, the space can be used for action. Some other areas are specifically for understanding the space. Left side, right side. Okay? Some other areas are important specifically for thinking and for planning. Some other areas are specifically important for recognition of objects, visual objects. Okay? So we call this visual object agnosia, the problem. If you put the key in the hand of the person, by touch, they can tell you the name. Okay? So you put the key inside the hand, so they hold the key, and they will tell you that, okay, it's a key. Okay? But only by sight, they cannot tell you the name. So that's why we call this visual object agnosia. Agnosia means not being able to understand. Another area is here, underneath the brain, which is important for face recognition. So, damage here causes prosopagnosia. So it's located in the medial occipital and temporal lobe. Injury here causes prosopagnosia, which is an inability to recognize familiar faces. So the patient look at his father's face, his mother's face, but he or she is not able to recognize them. So the patient cannot recognize familiar faces. Father, mother, any relatives, any friend. Okay? But the patient uses other information in order to recognize people. For example, I know that that guy usually wears that special type of clothes. So I can recognize him by his clothes. Or I know that, for example, he or she wears glasses, right? So by using this glass, I can recognize her or him. Or I know that somebody's walk like this, so by the sound of their walking or by looking at the way they walk, I can recognize some people. Okay? So usually the patient uses other information other than face in order to recognize people. So they can recognize their father based on their voice, their walking manner, their wearing habits. Okay? But only by face they cannot recognize people. And this makes problem when, for example, they go to a crowd area, when there are a lot of people, okay, when they wear new clothes, for example, when they go to wedding. Okay, so in a wedding ceremony, they have a lot of problem. Everyone actually wears a new or in different style. Okay, they may have some makeup. Okay, so there are a lot of people, so they have really trouble understanding people and recognizing people. So this is called prosopagnosia. Okay, damage to the inferior temporal.
I didn't know any of people
Yeah. So they are usually ashamed because they cannot recognize people. So when somebody comes to them and say hello to them, okay, and greet them, they don't know how to react. Should they react in a warm way or a more official way?
Sometimes some people.
I remember that. I've seen this word somewhere, but now I don't remember the meaning, maybe. Okay? So this is the same actually. This happens, okay? But when there is problem in this area, I mean when there is damage in this area, the patient cannot recognize even one people. Okay? So watching at a face or looking at a face activates the inferior temporal cortex on the right side. So this finger of Guyton is not correct. Okay? This is not bilateral, it should be unilateral. It should be only on the right side. Right side is this one, right? So, you can see that only the right side is activated when we look at the face. So, the other thing is that, the other area is the Wernicke's area, located in the temporal cortex here. You can see that they receive different types of information, auditory, visual, somatosensory. They combine all of them together. If you stimulate this area, it may cause feeling or, let's say, remembering something from the past, like a visual scene remembered from the childhood. Or activity here may cause auditory hallucination, so as if the person is listening to a special track of music or a special lecture by somebody. So this means the Wernicke's area is able to bring the information from the past memory into the consciousness, into the current consciousness, okay? It's similar to the prefrontal cortex. So if there is damage here, then there will be loss of intellectual functions associated with language. So the person is not able to understand the heard words, he or she is unable to read, to perform mathematical operations, or to think through logical problems. Okay, so based on this, we say that Wernicke's area is important for language understanding. And these two guys actually contributed a lot in understanding of the language processes. So this is the Broca's area, this one is the Wernicke. The Broca, okay? So Broca actually discovered this area, Broca's area, and this one is Wernicke, which discovered this area, Wernicke's area. Okay? So language is the ability to associate arbitrary syndromes with specific meanings. So we have this meaning, this one. We use a symbol for that. For example, I can use the word marker which is a sound produced by my mouth. This sound has a special frequency, right? So this sound means this object. I can use another word, arbitrary word, like control or remote control for this concept. So there is an association between symbols and objects, or symbols and meaning. So this is the language, right? So the symbols can be spoken and heard, like when I tell you something and you hear that, or it can be written and seen, okay? Written and read, or it can be gestured and seen. So I can, for example, show something to you like this. That means actually it's hot, right?
It's mean barbecue.
Barbecue maybe, it's like this actually, okay? So, so we can use different symbols for different meaning, and this association is called language. So, based on the Wernicke's and Broca's theory, when we hear something and repeat the word, we use this circuit. We hear the word by the primary auditory cortex, then information enters the Wernicke's area. Here the meaning of the word is understood. Then information goes through the arcuate fasciculus to the Broca's area. Broca's area generates a map or a complex program for telling this, for saying the same word. So this complex picture of the motor movement coming to the motor area, so especially the face area, because we talk with our face, right? Lips, tongue, right? The mouth. So then primary motor cortex can control the muscles in order to tell the word or say the word, right? So this is the order of information processing in the language center. But when we read something, okay, we look at the word, we use the primary visual cortex, information go into another area called angular generals. It's located in the parietal cortex. From here they go to the Wernicke's area, and everything is the same from here. So we can understand the meaning of the words by Wernicke's area. We can talk, we can produce motor action of the speaking by the Broca's area. So if there is damage to these areas, the outcome will be aphasia. So aphasia is caused by damage to the specific brain regions that are important for language. So there may be some problem with comprehension or production of the language, right? So let's compare two types of aphasias together. So if there is problem in the Broca's area, the patient will have Broca aphasia. Damage to the Wernicke's area causes Wernicke aphasia. So let's compare these two. When there is Broca's aphasia, these are features of the language. Halting the speech, so the speech is not fluent, right? The patient has a tendency to repeat some phrases and words. Syntax is disordered. Syntax is the order of the words. This one is disordered. Grammar is lost. Structure of individual words may be lost. But comprehension is intact. When you talk to them, they understand. Okay? So the patient talks. Actually, speech is very difficult for the person. There are actually some halts between the speech. I mean, there are some pauses between the words. Right? So, speech is not fluent, syntax and grammar is lost, but comprehension is okay. But Wernicke aphasia. In Wernicke's aphasia, speech is fluent, so the person speaks fluently. There is little spontaneous repetition, syntax is okay, grammar is okay. Sometimes there may be some inappropriate words, but comprehension is not intact. So, in a person with Wernicke's aphasia, the Broca area is okay, is normal. Broca's area is for speech, for talking. So there is no problem with talking. The person can talk fluently. Grammar is okay, syntax is okay, everything is okay. But Wernicke's area is important for thinking, the content of the language, and making it understandable. Now, in this person, Wernicke's area is lost, so the person doesn't have anything to convey to you. So the speech is unintelligible. It's not understandable to you, right? But in a patient with damage to Broca, the Wernicke's area is okay, so the person can think about what they want to say. So the content of the speech is okay, right? But the patient cannot actually repeat the words, cannot tell the word. So there is problem with the motor aspect of the speech, right? So syntax, grammar, all of these are lost, but comprehension is that you can understand the person also. So these are some examples. Okay, so this is some word made by a patient with Broca's aphasia. So there are some holds, some pauses between the words. Okay, so you can see that the number of words made by the person is very small, very few actually. But these words are made by a person with Wernicke's aphasia. Can I ask you to read this paragraph by yourself? Okay, you can see that grammar is okay. I'm sweating. I'm awful nervous. You know, once in a while I get caught up. Okay, so grammar is okay. The order of the words is okay also. There is no pause. Okay? So the person speaks fluently. But you cannot understand anything from this speech. So there is no content here. Okay? So Wernicke's area is important for making the content of the language.
You mean our language?
Yes, our language, when we talk. Actually, I'm not talking about foreign language. When you talk in your mother language, I mean your native language. Okay?
Sir, the people which are not able to speak since their childhood, and the patients, Wernicke's area and Broca both are developed.
Actually, these are about a person which was able to talk before, but now after a stroke or after a head trauma or damage to the head, they cannot talk anymore. So this happens in a person that were able to talk. Now he or she is not able.
So what
Okay,
about,
but about the child, maybe there is a problem with, with intellectual function, maybe there is dyslexia, I don't know. So developmental problems maybe.
in this area?
In these areas?
In specifically in Wernicke's or Broca area?
Usually this doesn't happen in newborns. For example, specific damage or specific problem in Wernicke, no. Usually this doesn't happen in newborns. Okay? There may be some more general problems with the brain.
Sir, if anybody has a problem in Wernicke's aphasia, can he learn a new word? I think if he has problem in Wernicke's, then he can only speak the words which he had learned before. In past.
So actually there is more severe problem in this person. The patient cannot understand you. You talk to them, they cannot understand. They talk to you, cannot understand them. Okay? So when there is Wernicke's problem, the patient is not aware of anything. They keep talking, talk, but they don't convey any message to you. And they are not aware of what is happening to them. They are happy actually. Okay? So they're happy, but they don't know they have problem. But in a patient with Broca's aphasia, they know what they want to tell you, but they cannot. Okay? They have difficulty speaking, so they are usually depressed. They know that something wrong is there with their language. Okay? So a patient with Wernicke's aphasia even cannot understand you. Okay, let alone actually learning a new word. Okay? So there are also other aphasias. For example, damage to the angular nerves may cause alexia. Alexia means inability to read. Let's get back to this slide here. This one. When you read something, you need this area, right? Angular nerves. Right? Information goes from the occipital cortex to the angular nerves. So, if there is damage here, what happens? Wernicke's area is normal, Broca's area is normal, so the person can easily talk, they can understand you, but they cannot read. Okay? So they cannot read, they cannot understand anything from the written word. So we call this alexia, inability to read. But if there is widespread damage to the brain, maybe both Broca's area and Wernicke's area are damaged, then there will be global aphasia. So the person will have both sign of Wernicke's aphasia and Broca's aphasia. Okay, I think it's enough for you. It's enough for you, okay? So you can read these parts by yourself. So I won't give you any question from here to the end of this slides, okay? So lateralization and working and memory is up to you. You can read them by yourself. But now I'm ready if you have any question from other parts.
It is just for information, right, sir? You
Yeah,
won't
just
give
for
it.
your information. If you are interested, you can read more, okay?